You are listening to the People First podcast.
People First is a self-advocacy group run by people with learning disabilities, and People First podcast is a platform to raise awareness about real issues that affect people with learning disabilities in our community and all around the world.
We aim to inform and entertain our listeners by interviewing interesting guests and talking about the things that really matter to us. This is like having a stage to speak out and get our voices heard.
Hello and welcome to People First podcast. Today we will be talking to Allan Clarke from the Lion's Den in Keighley. Welcome and thank you for coming in.
Thank you. It's good to come down, and I've heard of People First for quite a while now, but I've not been in, so it was lovely to be invited in and having a chat.
Can you tell us what the Lion Den is?
Yeah, sure. The Lion's Den is the name we've given to our shed. Now, the shed is set up really to tackle mental health and well-being and loneliness, isolation, bereavement in predominantly older men. But we didn't call ourselves a men's shed because I always knew we would have lady members as well. So rather than call ourselves the men's shed, Keighley Men's Shed, we called ourselves the Lion's Den. And that was because I'm a member of Keighley Lions, and the other chap that started it with me was also a member of Keighley Lions. So we just thought and they bought us our first 3 bits of machinery, so we thought it'd be nice to call it the Lion's Den.
Is it part of a large project?
In itself, no, because every shed is independent. However, we are a member of the Men's Shed Association of the United Kingdom. So we all the sheds tend to be members of that, and but every shed is independent. Every shed does its own thing. So yes and no, really.
How and when did the Lion's Den start?
It started in about July 2019, but didn't open as a shed until September 19. And that's when we started getting a little bit of funding and a few grants, and we were able to set up the operation.
We're here. That's the new group starting up locally. Where will that be taking place?
During COVID, obviously, everything slowed down. But we always had a notion that we would be opening up another shed in town. And we've been lucky enough to get about a third of the old St. Michael's Chapel in Bracken Bank, which has been derelict for over 20 years. And in fact, when I used to manage Russell Street project, it was offered to us back then, and we refused it on the grounds that it was so badly vandalised. However, we've now just done a soft opening, so we have Cliffe Castle and we have Bracken Bank as 2 complementary sheds.
Who is the Lion Den for?
Right, it's predominantly, as I said earlier, it is aimed at mature men who have lost their wives, or they may be lonely, they may not be married, they may have some disability, and mental health and well-being could be some issues with them, or suicidal even. However, we made sure that in our constitution we brought the age limit as 18 plus, because we know there are a lot more men and in fact women that are suffering from mental health and stress, and particularly coming through COVID. We're seeing an increase in the NHS staff that are showing signs of PTSD, similar to veterans coming back from the Middle East and so on. And we always wanted to aim it at a broader sort of field of people, really.
Does it cost any money to take part?
It does if you are able to afford it. What our membership is a suggested donation of £30 a year. However, what we don't want to do is turn people away who could benefit most and can't afford it. So we can actually waive the fee if necessary.
What kind of activities do you do at the Lion's Den?
Yeah, Cliffe Castle, which, as I say, has been open now since September 19, is predominantly woodworking and horticulture. So we have 2 woodworking shops, we have a couple of greenhouses, and we also have koi carp there. The koi carp have been there since before we started, but we look after them. We've turned the koi carp tanks into quite a decorative Japanese theme, which people walk in and say, wow. And that's when we hit them for donations and grants and so on and so forth. And then, so that's what we do at Cliffe. What we're now doing up at Bracken Bank is bicycle maintenance and repair, model railways, both 800, yeah, I'm not a railway person, 00 and N gauge. We're doing 3D printing, laser etching, cutting, and IT technology, model making, singing, and also arts and crafts. So not all of them are open fully yet. We're just developing them. We're still making the track and things like that for the railways. But we'll be doing things like glass making. We'll be doing quite a lot of 3D printing and so on. So we've opened the bike side, and people who want to come down and get involved with the railways are welcome at the moment, and model making. And there's a chap that's just joined us, and he's making a large-scale plastic kit of a World War II tank.
Do you have any favourite activities?
Well, I'm biased, obviously, because I teach woodwork, so I've got to say woodwork. And by making things in wood and teaching people in wood, I get a buzz. Just, as if I was doing something for myself. But I do like the idea of the 3D printing and laser etching. I do like the idea of the glass making. I'm not a bike person, never have been. I'm not built for bikes. I'm built for comfort, for getting in cars. So the bikes don't interest me much. But I would say woodwork has got to be, because that's my favourite sort of subject.
How does what you do at Lion's Den impact people with mental health and well-being?
Yeah, I mean, the way it's a peer-to-peer support. So we have no paid counsellors, we have no paid workers. It's everything we do is to support each other. The way we benefit is by reducing loneliness, reducing bereavement, suffering from bereavement and isolation. And it's been proven that by coming out and doing activities, it takes your mind off things. It can lead to lowering your requirement on medications. In some instances, it's removed all need for medications, particularly things for depression and so on. But there are 2 distinct groups. There are some groups in town that are doing wonderful things, such as It's Worth Talking About, and they sit around a table and they talk and they open up to each other. Some guys, particularly men, don't feel comfortable sitting in a group talking about their problems. But if they're working on something together, say they're repairing a lawnmower or whatever, they find it more easy to open up. So what we find is the most important part of the sheds is the social area, when we have a tea and a coffee, and that's when people open up and start talking about the problems, and then realising somebody else in the room has also got similar problems. And you start swapping stories, and it does help. It helps a lot.
How can you get involved in Lion's Den?
Well, if you're 18 plus, what I normally say to people is come and have a look around first, no obligation. And if there is something that takes your interest, come down for a few times, just pop in. There's no pressure to do anything. You can just come down and have a coffee and a biscuit and a natter, maybe sit and do a jigsaw, read a book, anything. You don't have to do anything. But if something takes your fancy, then we would say, like, have a go for a while before saying, do you fancy becoming a member? Because the last thing in the world we want to do is say on day one, there's a membership form, give us some money and you're a member, because it might not be for you. So it's best to try before you buy, really. It's £30 a year, but that's a suggested donation.
We saw you did a TED talk. What was that about?
Well, that came about because I'm a member of the Social Enterprise Town group, who are bidding to have Keighley as a social enterprise town. And we meet every fortnight, and a chap called Tim Rogers, who's looking to bring space manufacturing and things into Keighley, he mentioned that they were organising a TED talk at Keighley College, and would I be interested in having a spot? So I said, yeah, absolutely, because I found it very interesting. It's worldwide, and it goes out on YouTube. So when I looked at it, it was called Wrong Turns, the Wrong Turn. So I just thought of a subject, and through life, I mean, I was born in Whitehaven, married in Lincolnshire after coming out of the RAF, moved up to Keighley with Magnet, and settled here, and we've been here 32 years. So I've moved around the world a lot, I've moved around the country a lot, and it's one of those things in your mind, you think, well, what if I'd done something different? What if I'd taken that choice and not this choice? And it's amazing when you think that, take for example, right at this very moment, had I not decided to come to Keighley, I wouldn't have been sat here with you now. Your lives would have been different. Mine would have been different, because everybody we interact with, it changes their path as well. So it was really a talk about, it was ad lib, because the script I had in my mind, I was told we couldn't do, because I was literally going to go up there and just advertise the Lions Den Shed. And he said, oh no, you can't really do that. So I talked about decisions when I left school, so from womb to now, really. And the decision to say, for example, when I left school, I decided to either go to Australia as a £10 boy going in and getting a job, or going into the RAF. And it happened that the RAF papers came first. So this is what it was all about. It was a what if that had happened and not that. So it was called the Wrong Turn.
Thank you so much for coming in today, Alan. Hope you've enjoyed today's programme, and all the best for the future for the Lions Den.
Oh, thank you very much. I'd like to think that at some point in the near future you think about popping around and having a look for yourselves. You never know, there might be something that takes your fancy.
That's it for this week's episode. Remember to like and follow and share the show if you enjoy it. See you next time.